What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and as you can see, right above me, very special guest, Dom C is in the house. What's going on, Dom?
Hey Tigo, what's up, buddy? Long
Not
time
much.
no chat like this, man. It's been a
Yeah.
while, dude.
Yeah,
Glad
one
to
on
have you.
one.
Glad to be on, and I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, always. And so today we're going to be doing a full first round mock draft. Dom is going to be doing all of the odd picks. I am going to be doing all of the even picks. We did it this way so that Dom gets to pick the Jets pick. You guys are subscribers to my channel anyway, and you know what I'm going to do with the Jets pick or what I want to do with the Jets pick. Let's get some other opinions on this. And so, yeah, that's really it. We're going to be using the PFF mock draft simulator just because I think it's the prettiest of all of the mock draft simulators. And since we're making all of the picks in the first round anyway, who cares about the big board? We're going to be using our own personal mental big boards. Anyway, so there's that. Let's hop in. You are on the clock, Dom,
Oh
with the
man,
Carolina Panthers, who have traded a massive haul to come up to number one to obviously take Jalen Carter, right?
if it was that easy, man. So yeah, I mean, listen, they're trading up for the quarterback. The question is, which quarterback are they taking, right? You can make an argument for you can probably make an argument for all four of them. I know some of you guys might be a little bit sour on Will Levis. I don't think he's going number one, so I think you can make an argument for three of them at least. But I think my mind is set as of now at the end of March on which direction they're leaning. And it's still, I don't know if it's the pick I would make, but I'm going to go ahead and take CJ Stroud from Ohio State off the board for Carolina. I think he's probably physically and schematically just a better fit for what Frank Reich wants to do over there in Carolina. They're stockpiling some second tier weapons in there, so it should be an interesting offense. Listen, I don't know if he has the ceiling of Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson, but he definitely has the higher floor. So my pick for Carolina is going to be CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I totally agree with this pick. I think the biggest decision that was made for me here when it came for why CJ Stroud is the pick over, because for me, I think the two guys would have been CJ or Will Levis. I think Will Levis fits like that mold of what Frank Reich kind of looks at quarterback, gunslinger with all the athleticism, things like that. When you see his time with like Carson Wentz and those kinds of things.
Okay.
But in that division, that is so bad. If you can get CJ Stroud, like you said, the highest floor of any of these guys, the most pro-ready guy of any of these guys, in my opinion, when you look at their skill set, CJ Stroud can go in there with all of that second tier talent, like you mentioned, and I think win that division. It's not going to be easy, but Carolina has a relatively good team built around the quarterback position, even with the loss of DJ Moore. So if they add another wide receiver in this draft, if they do a couple of different things, they've got a pretty solid defense. They've got a pretty solid offense. I think they can compete for that division, and I think that's what's the driving force for this CJ Stroud pick. Now,
Yeah, well, the division's wide open.
yep.
I mean, the NFC South is just prime for the taking. So, I happen like I like Bryce Young. I do, and this pick easily come April could be Bryce Young, but I don't know. All the arrows to me are just pointing that they're going to go with the high floor guy. He showed up in that last in his last bowl game. He played an excellent game. Tested out, at his pro day very well. There's all the grumblings and all the the little innuendos that kind of said, "Hey, when you're in Charlotte, we got to do this," or "When you're in Charlotte, we got to do that." Just everything's kind of lining up for me that CJ seems to be the guy.
Yeah. Josh McCown's not very good at hiding his intentions, I don't think.
True.
Now the Texans are here at 2, and I'm going to make the pick that I think is going to happen when it comes draft day. I do not agree with this pick. I think this is a bad pick. I would not make this pick. But to save my comment section from like, oh, Texans are never going to, I'm going to take Bryce Young here.
Yeah. Well,
I do not like
before you
Bryce
get
Young.
into that, before you get into that, I think we should have probably set the parameters. Is this predictive? Is this what we think is going to happen, or is it what we would do? That's kind of how we have to.
Outside of this pick, what you would do as the GM? Because if it's me, I would have taken Will Levis here.
Okay.
I think Will Levis is quarterback 2 in my eyes when it comes to, like, Anthony Richardson is fantastic, but for a team like Houston, I don't think they have the time or the ability to develop a guy like that. And when I look at the West Coast system that they're bringing in with Bobby Slowick and all of that stuff, like, Shanahan seems like the type of guy that if he was looking for a quarterback in this draft would really like Will Levis. And if he would really like Will Levis and his Shanahanite and Bobby Slowick is coming over, I think that they might really like Will Levis. But the problem is that the general manager for the Houston Texans, Nick Caserio, likes taking highly recruited out of high school, SEC schools, and all of that stuff. And while Will Levis has like that high level of competition and all that stuff, he just doesn't have a resume that screams Nick Caserio is going to take this guy. And so I'm going to take this Bryce just to save my comment section. I don't like this pick. I have Bryce Young as quarterback 4 on my rankings. I don't trust a guy who's 180 pounds and 5'10". Like, I just don't trust it. I don't think he has a body for an NFL game. And that's the only concern I have with him. I don't care about his height. It's literally the fact that he looks like a teenager out there when he's playing with college guys. Imagine when you add men, real men, to the other side of the football. Matt Milano was able to bend, and I keep using this as the example, was able to bend Mike White in half. What happens when that happens with Bryce Young? I'm just saying.
Wow. Number 4 on the board.
Yeah.
That's a steaming hot take right there.
Yeah.
Listen,
And again, nothing to do with his ability, everything to do with his size.
Bryce Young's probably still my number 1 quarterback on the board. Listen, we easily could see come April, we could see 4 quarterbacks off the board relatively quickly. It's not my favorite quarterback class. I'm not saying it's a bad one. It's just not my favorite. Right now in my rankings, I still have Bryce Young as number 1. It's hard to get away from the potential, the big game chops that he has. He's he hits every throw. He's mobile enough. I know the size is a thing, and that's a real thing.
Yep.
But it's hard for me to get away from Bryce Young, and for what it's worth, I would have made the same pick here for Houston.
Number 3, Arizona is on the clock.
Arizona is on the clock.
Now, let me inform, because this is probably the first place where a trade could come in. The way that we're doing it, obviously, so that the viewers know, is obviously you own all of the odd picks, I own all the even picks. If you want to initiate a trade between an odd number team and an odd number team, you have total autonomy to do such things. But if an even number team or a team that I own wants to come up and take a player, they absolutely, we can have that discussion, and we can call and we can make those conversations. Okay. So, that being said, I don't know if any team that you own is going to call.
Well, ring, ring. I'm kind of figuring out here, and this is something that I really, I'm going to explain myself. I think there's a couple. I think this pick is going to be the one that most teams come calling at, right? You got the teams like, obviously, the Colts can just sit pretty and take whatever quarterback's left if somebody else jumps them.
They're on the second line.
Yeah,
they're on the second line. They're waiting for you to finish with Seattle so that they can talk. You can talk to them.
The Raiders are on the board, possibly for they could use a quarterback. Jimmy G's here, but that contract is not. I wouldn't expect Jimmy G, to his signing to mean that the Raiders are completely out of the quarterback market. Again, you got to remember that teams, when they're picking this high, don't want to miss that opportunity. Especially some decent teams. Now, you can call the Raiders what they are, but I'm going to make a small little deal here, and I'm going to have Seattle move up.
Can I interest you, since I'm Indianapolis? Indianapolis wants to get there and make sure that they get their guy. Can I interest you in the number 4 pick so you only drop 1 spot and adding 35? That's the trade. A first and a second. You walk away with an extra 150 amount of points according to the point scale.
Yeah.
Can I interest you in moving only back one spot and picking up an additional second-round pick?
I'm
Back-to-back seconds.
I'm going to pass, and
Ooh.
I'm going to have Seattle jump up because I really think this is a feasible spot and something that I'm dead set really is going to happen. And I think that Seattle's going to be looking at the quarterback market. I know Gino just signed for 3 years and 60 million, 60 plus million, but that contract, they have an out after year one. They have an out after year two. And just like I said, Seattle's one of those teams who's up and coming. They're not going to be picking this high any further. So I'm going to go ahead and swap out picks number 5 and pick number 37
Yep.
and a third rounder next year to move up to number 3. And
Boom. Seattle
with that,
is now on the clock.
Seattle's now on the clock. And this is a no-brainer for me. Seattle's going to take Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
He needs to sit. He needs to learn. He has sky-high athletic ability and potential. He just got to learn to be a quarterback. And what better role model or mentor to have than someone who's been through the ringer, numerous teams for numerous years. I'm going to have Seattle jump up. Arizona's going to move down to 5, and Seattle's going to take Anthony Richardson.
That is a fantastic pick. If they're coming up, this is exactly who Indianapolis was trying to come up to get. They were trying to come up to get Anthony Richardson, especially with who they are. Indianapolis is a little bit disappointed that they can't get their guy in Anthony Richardson, but I don't consider this necessarily a consolation prize. I know I am much higher on Will Levis than a lot of people, but I think Indianapolis walks away with a gunslinger, a guy that can dish out the ball. And if Steichen, the new head coach over there, can really help and develop that run game that we saw in Philly over in Indianapolis, I think Will Levis has the chops with his arm and his athleticism to get the ball where it needs to go. Indianapolis sticks and picks at number 4, and they take quarterback Will Levis. And I would not be surprised if come draft day we saw it go 1, 2, 3, 4, quarterback, in this order, like exactly like this.
Yeah, and I think Will Levis is kind of the guy that Indianapolis is honing in on as well. I wouldn't, like I said, they could trade up. They could trade up to 3. They could be the ones swapping out with Arizona. And I think Will Levis is still the pick. I just think it just makes too much sense. Like I said, I happen to like the quarterback myself. I think he's really, really good. He's got his footwork doesn't match his upper body. He's a little bit stiff up top, and a little bit too mechanical, but the footwork is clean, and he's more athletic than people lead on to be. And on top of that, he has an absolute howitzer hanging off his shoulder. So, if he puts it all together, and Indianapolis's line doesn't fall apart like they did last year, I mean, I think he's got a chance to be a nice little player over there in Indianapolis for Steichen. So,
Arizona's back on the clock.
Arizona is back on the clock here, and this is a no-brainer. I shouldn't say it's a no-brainer, but I'm going to lean and replace and probably take the best defensive player, arguably the best defensive player in the class, one of the 2 blue chip prospects in this entire class. And I'm going to go ahead and take the edge from Alabama, Will Anderson, for Arizona. I think if they stick and pick at 3, he's probably the pick. But here they picked up a second rounder and a third rounder next year and got the same guy. So
absolutely, this is this is the perfect world that if you are the Arizona Cardinals and you trade out of that position, like this is what you're hoping for. Like this is what you hope is going to happen. Now, the Lions are sitting here at 6, and they are absolutely head over heels over one guy, I think, and I don't know how they're going to pass up on this guy. We all know that they need help on the defense, and they specifically, I think, need help in one major area. And I think if Will Anderson was still on the board, they would have taken Will Anderson. I'm not as high on Will Anderson as a couple of people are. I still think he's the first player non-quarterback taken off the board. I just don't think he's a super high ceiling kind of guy. I think he's one of those high floor, low ceiling kind of players.
Okay.
But I think that they've honed in on one kid. I love this kid. If we needed a DB, I would go get this kid. And I think they go and they get Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon.
Wow.
I know that they need help on the defensive line. I know that they just signed CJ Gardner-Johnson to probably play their slot cornerback, and they brought in Cam Sutton to play corner. I have absolutely zero faith in Okudah turning it around at all. If you can get a true corner with that rare combo of speed, athleticism, size, the whole nine, I think you don't pass up on it. And they've got another first-round pick. And what have we been saying about this draft class? It's really, really deep on the edge and on the and at those types of positions. If they can get the best player available at a position of need, I think they do it. I'm going to take Christian Gonzalez at 6.
Christian Gonzalez, I like that. It's that's money, man. So we're up now with the Raiders, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Raiders can go a bunch of different ways here. Listen, is this where Jalen Carter falls? Could be. They could always use another body on that defensive line. Their cornerback room is a mess. Christian Gonzalez definitely would have been the pick. Offensive line makes sense here as well. You can go for another edge. Let's see.
Don't forget, they could, theoretically, they could get, a tackle or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? And bump one of those guys inside. This is really, in my opinion, where the draft kind of blows open. Because no one knows what Vegas is going to do. You can't predict them correctly. I think those top 6 picks, I think you could write those in stone. But Vegas can blow this draft wide open.
Yeah, they can. I'm just pulling up my board here. Let's see, man. Christian Gonzalez off the board really throws a monkey wrench in everything here.
Messed up your plans, did I?
It sure did.
I know you're not as high on him as I am, but I do like me some Witherspoon. I know that he's same concern.
Yeah,
that
the
you
problem
have
I
about
listen,
Young, or that I have about Young, you have about
exactly.
Witherspoon.
The problem I have with Witherspoon is at 185 pounds. I mean, he's a dog. He hits. He's sticky in man coverage. I just can't see. There hasn't been there's been 2 defensive backs, 2 cornerbacks that have been that size that have gone in the first round. I just can't see it. Man, I'm going to go ahead, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock down what I think is probably the best offensive lineman in this class. He's definitely the most flexible. He's definitely got, he can start at any 5 positions. And with that flexibility, I think you can kind of play chess on the offensive line. I'm going to go ahead and pick Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. I think that they start him and shoot him in there, possibly at right tackle or maybe even inside at guard, and see how it happens at camp. They got room at both spots. They still need a center. Maybe he comes in and and they put their best 5 on there. But Skoronski's gonna be my pick. I think he's worth it. I'm not. I mean, I know his arms were sub 33 inches, and that's just crazy talk when you're talking about length in this day and age in tackles. And there's a lot of teams that won't take him as a tackle, but Las Vegas has always been known to kind of think outside the box here, and they kind of don't follow the norm or the plans that most other GMs do. So I just think it's hard to get away from a talent like Peter Skronsky. He's plug and play, whether it's on the outside or on the inside. So Skronsky's going to be my pick.
I honestly think this is the pick that probably ends up happening. I don't know if it's Skoronski, if it's Paris Johnson Jr., but I think this is an offensive line pick here. I always struggle here at 8 with Atlanta because of one of a couple of reasons, because they can go a couple of different ways. But the real way that I look at it is the value of the position, is making sure that the player you're taking has the best value for your football team. And like if one of the quarterbacks was here, they'd probably love that. But they do have second-year quarterback in Desmond Ridder. And I think that they're going to do the same thing that they did last year. And I think they have to take a wide receiver here in the first round. Now, I think we can both agree that you or I probably wouldn't do a wide receiver this early, especially with this class. Yeah. But looking at who's available, yes, I could take a Tyree Wilson, a Jalen Carter. I even seriously considered Devin Witherspoon here to partner him up with A.J. Terrell and then have Jesse Bates covering over the top of the both of them. Like, that's a really solid secondary. But if the plan seems to be that they're going to run Ridder out there next year, they only have one pass catcher, like in the wide receiver room, that matters, and that's Drake London, a guy that we were both really, really high on last year. They have Kyle Pitts, and he had a down year last year, and they're hoping that they can revitalize it. And they have Tyler Algier back there as a running back that did a lot of really good things. And I think if you can go and get another weapon for Desmond Ridder, I think you do it. And this is where I'm going to take Jackson Smith-Njigba off the board. They have that big-bodied X wide receiver in Drake London, so I don't know if Quentin Johnson matches that up perfectly. And so I'm going to get them a shifty, quick, not fast, but quick slot wide receiver that can get open and create space in the middle of the field for Desmond Ridder to partner up him and Kyle Pitts in that middle of the field kind of passing threat. And just let's see what you've got in Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, listen, the pick makes sense to me. Arthur Smith wants to run the ball down there. Jackson Smith-Njigba might be one of the best blocking receivers in the game, and I think he's put all this he's too slow stuff to rest after he tested out very well. Showed up at his pro day, looking the part. 8 might be a little rich for me, but I understand why you're going there. So I can't really argue it. And at this point, I think Chicago sprints up to the podium. There's no question. I didn't expect him to fall this far. And in hindsight, I probably should have taken him a couple picks earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and say this is where the slide for Jalen Carter stops.
Interesting.
And Chicago locks down their future defensive tackle. Probably, if there wasn't all this hubbub around him, probably would have been one of the top 3 players off the board. Definitely one of the 2 blue chip talents in this draft. Hopefully a little bit, hopefully he learned his lesson and Ryan Poles and the rest of the veterans the rest of the veterans over there in Chicago can kind of hone him in and let him just be the excellent football player that he is. So Jalen Carter is going to be the pick, and Chicago's elated. They've done a real good job remaking that defense real quick between free agency and this draft here.
Now is going to come a pick with the Philadelphia Eagles that I know.
Ring, ring, ring.
Oh.
Ring, ring, ring.
Oh.
Ring, ring, ring.
Who's coming up?
I have an offer for you. Pittsburgh wants to move up. Pittsburgh's down at 17. They see how the board has fallen, and they really want to come up to 10. So I'm going to go ahead and make an offer. Pittsburgh's got some people that they want to jump. I'm going to offer you 17. I'm going to offer you 49. And I'm going to offer you 120 to come up to 10. The value in the Jimmy Johnson trade.
Yeah, we walk away with about 200 points worth of value.
However you want to make it work. You could take 120.
I think like here's the thing. I'm trying to think if I'm Philadelphia, right? We
Mhm.
just came off of a Super Bowl campaign.
Mhm.
Somehow and miraculously, we kept almost everybody that mattered. Somehow we kept our cornerback room. Somehow we kept this offensive line relatively healthy. Yeah, we lost Mailata, but like I think I'm gonna take the pick. I think I'm gonna accept it.
You're gonna
Yeah,
accept the trade?
I'm sorry, the trade. Yeah, I think I'm gonna accept it. And
Let's redo it a little bit. 120s doesn't really value much, I'm sure, to Philadelphia. They have
I
Philadelphia
already took
actually.
it. I think that was a really
I
really
was going to
fair
offer you
trade.
more, but yeah, Philadelphia doesn't have any picks in that middle round, so maybe
I
that
thought that was an incredibly fair trade.
yeah. So Pittsburgh's on the clock.
Still my pick at 10, but I'm assuming that they came up to get in front of Tennessee to take Paris Johnson Jr. here, and that's the pick that I'm going to be making. We know that Tennessee needs a tackle. If the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming up and they need a tackle, they did this a couple years ago to get Devin Bush. It didn't work out for them. This time I think it will. They're going to come up to number 10. That was a really good fair trade competition, and they're going to take Paris Johnson Jr., leaving Tennessee with really kind of only one option at 11.
Yeah, interesting, right? Let me just go ahead and make the trade here on my board. So we'll say that. We'll say that. I'm just pushing through stuff to make it work here. And Pittsburgh takes Paris Johnson, and that's exactly what I was going to do.
Partnering him with his old teammate and Petit Frere, who's down. No, never mind. That's in Tennessee.
Yeah, listen, Pittsburgh locked down 2 guards in free agency.
Yep.
Right. Last year they signed a guard in free agency. Why not go secure the tackle? Do something that they haven't done in a while and lock in that edge. You know, whether Paris Johnson starts on the right or the left, he's flexible for both. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. To me, it's an absolute no-brainer here. And Tennessee's on the clock at 11.
Yep.
Tennessee is on the clock at 11. And
I'm really
man.
curious to see what you're going to do here at 11 with them. Because I know where I would go, and I know that a lot of people may not agree with this. But I'm curious
I
to see what you do.
listen. I mean, really, it comes down to 2 spots for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I take the next available tackle, or do I take a wide receiver?
We're
I
in lockstep.
would have really considered Jackson Smith in the Jigba at this point, but he's off the board, and there's just too many holes along that offensive line. There's just too many holes along that offensive line. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick Broderick Jones and hope that his sky high potential can hold out and he steps in and it's left tackle 1 for them for the next 12 years or so. So Broderick Jones is off the board, and there's your 3 tackles.
Gone.
Yes, sir.
The Texans are here at 12, and we're gonna follow. We know what the Texans are. They're the New York Jets. They're the Houston Jets, right? They hired Robert Saleh light. They're following that Shanahan scheme, that Shanahan system, and we know that this system defensively values guys in the trenches. And when you see a guy that has this level of athleticism available here, I think new head coach and DeMeco Ryans will be salivating at the idea of bringing edge out of Texas Tech Tyree Wilson into the fold. You go and you got your franchise quarterback. Go and get an edge to really help that defense that they've spent a lot of money on. Bringing in a lot of guys. They got Sheldon Rankins. They got a bunch of different guys. But let's keep adding. We know that how heavy that rotation is used. Bring in another guy with a sky-high ceiling in Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, listen, Tyree Wilson, it wouldn't surprise me if he was the pick at number 3 for Arizona. I mean, that wouldn't throw me off whatsoever. And if Seattle doesn't make a move,
That's where he goes.
as I think, that's where he goes. So this is his absolute floor, in my opinion. and I'm up with the Jets.
Yeah, what are you doing with the Jets?
Oh man, I'm telling you what I'm doing. I'm scouring down the board, and I don't see any. This is the problem that I think we're gonna see come April. You got all four quarterbacks off the board, right? You got the two big edges off the board, and all three, and the three big name tackles off the board. So realistically, I know every Jets fan out there in the world says, "I want to trade down. I want to recoup a third round, or I want to recoup this." But who's trading up? It's a question. You know, you can make an argument if Levis slips, which I don't think he will. That there's a team that might jump up. Washington, Tampa Bay could jump up for a quarterback. I'm gonna go ahead and do something here that probably not everyone's gonna like, but I think it's picking up a lot of steam. And since I can't really hone in on a trade partner, I'm gonna go ahead and stick and pick. And I'm still going to address the offensive line, and I'm going to take Darnell Wright from Tennessee.
Wow.
And he's going to be your right tackle, and and Mekhi and Dwayne Brown are going to battle it out for left, or the three of them are going to battle it out for two spots, and ideally Mekhi and Darnell Wright come out the winners, and Dwayne Brown is your swing with Max Mitchell, and I think you've done a lot of justice for that offensive line. Listen, if you haven't seen Darnell Wright play, I highly suggest that you do. I'm telling you, this is not out of the realm. This is the area where Darnell Wright's going to go. He's going to go anywhere from 13 to 20. He's going to be off the board. It's justified. Like I said, as a Jets fan, I would have liked to trade back. I just don't see, there's no one that's jumping up out of the room that says come get me. So I'm going to stick and pick, and I'm going to take Darnell Wright.
While I find this pick incredibly interesting,
mm-hmm.
I don't control these teams, but if I did, I think that the Chargers and the Vikings would have made calls to maybe come up to get in front of New England to maybe look at a guy like Quentin Johnston. Johnston.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm saying either one of those two teams is because the Vikings just lost Adam Thielen, and I love me KJ Osborne, and that's great, but Justin Jefferson needs help, and you're going into the final year of Kirk Cousins and his deal, and possibly the final year of Kirk Cousins there. If that's really going to be the thing, go and get another receiver weapon who could be better than what Adam Thielen is. And this Adam Thielen was older and all of those stuff. And with that division, Green Bay is no longer going to be like unattainable because they're not going to have Aaron Rodgers under center. The Bears are still the Bears, and while they're getting swifty, they're not really competitive. You're going to have to keep up with Detroit, and Detroit's offense is only going to get better because of that wide receiver from Alabama that they took last year. He's finally going to be fully healthy. You add that with Amon-Ra St. Brown and all of that, like that's a lethal offense. How do you counter lethal offense? So those would be the two teams that I think would have come up maybe for a wide receiver. The Chargers maybe try to pull a Bengals methodology of like, let's just go get three absolute studs at the wide receiver room. And when you look at Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, they have a hard time staying on the field. You need the depth there. So those would have been the two teams. But Darnell Wright at 13 is super interesting.
Yeah, and listen, like I said, in an ideal world, you trade down. I don't think, and this is where we're going to disagree. Minnesota wide receiver could definitely be the target, but I don't know if Quentin Johnston's the guy that you're trading up. I mean, to come up from where are they in the first round? They're
23.
23. To come up from 23 to 13, you're talking 760.
You're probably like a third and a fourth. It's not that many points.
No, you're talking. I mean, that's over almost 500 value points. They don't own a second rounder, so you're probably talking 2/3 if they had one, similar to what the Jets trade when they traded with Minnesota to get up in front and take Elijah Vertuck a few years ago. But Minnesota just didn't have the draft capital, so then you're talking about picks next year. Now, if you say all right, I'll give you 2 ones to come up to 23. I think that's a conversation Joe Douglas is gonna have and gonna easily,
I don't
really
think I would have
consider.
offered that.
But I mean, they don't own a second rounder, and their third rounder is at 87. That's 155 points. So where are you getting that value? I just don't see that. And especially, again, forget about the trade compensation. I just don't see the point in trading up for Quentin Johnson now. Um, you're going to be able to score wide receiver if that's your target at 23. You're going to get a good one. Adam Thielen ran what 60 some odd percent of snaps from the slot. This draft is chock full of good slot receivers, good slot capable guys. So to me, I don't see Minnesota making that trade. Like I said, if Pittsburgh hadn't traded up, then maybe you have a conversation. Because there's some teams that are going to be in this general area from 16 down through 26 that might look to move up for a cornerback. But Pittsburgh was the real one. Like now, I don't know. I just don't see it. So that's my
Again,
whole take.
it's one of those things where like you have to find the right partner,
Yeah.
and with those teams they have to stay competitive in a division that's only getting harder and harder to stay competitive in. Like specifically like with like the Chargers, like the Chargers team is like relatively well built. They're a team that I look at that can absolutely follow their stadium mate, their mentality, and go F them picks and try to just go like, yes, is Quentin Johnson worth a trade up? Probably not. But if we feel like adding another wide receiver is going to help us compete with Kansas City and, Denver now with Sean Payton and just the AFC that's just absolutely loaded, go do it. Like, screw it. Just go do it. And that's the way that I look at it. Now, the Patriots are here at 14, and I absolutely hate helping the Patriots in any way, shape, or form. The good thing is that we're not going to be helping that offensive line because all of the offensive linemen are taken. And yes, Anton Harrison is still on the board, and that's definitely an option. I still think that the biggest need for New England is wide receiver. Even with trading for Parker, bringing in Juju, I still think they need a wide receiver, but I don't think that they're going to go that way. I think that Bill Belichick is going to want to go back to that defensive stalwart mentality and that ideology of let's just win with defense. And I think this is where Devin Witherspoon goes. They'll find a place to play him, whether that's in the slot, whether that's outside. They'll figure out if there's anybody that's going to figure out how to utilize an undersized corner. I think that Devin Witherspoon is definitely a Bill Belichick kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think he can work really, really well in man coverage. Like kind of put him on an island. Yeah, I don't think it's like, but don't actually put him on an island because you can't do that nowadays in the NFL. You're just going to get burned. But that's like what I look at it. And if anyone's going to be able to figure it out, I think it'll be Bill Belichick. So Devin Witherspoon, just putting a hat on a hat. Let's just be best defensive coach in the NFL for a long time. Pick a defensive player that I think is going to be a stud.
Yeah, I see the fit there, and it makes sense.
It was between him and Kalijah Kancey, and I just thought, you know what? They got Judon, they got Uche, and while I love me some Kalijah Kancey, they need help on the outside, and with Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, throwing balls to Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard and probably OBJ whenever that signing happens, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Like, how are you going to cover those guys? Like, these offensive lines are getting better. You know what? Let's just cover them by having good corners.
Yeah. It makes sense. Like I said, I think that, listen, Witherspoon is, phenomenal. He's sticky in man coverage. He's phenomenal as short tackler, phenomenal in run support. He's flexible, and Illinois breeds these defensive backs that just can play in multiple fronts. So, if you stick him in a 3 deep, or if, he has to be up on the man every so often, Witherspoon can make that play. So it completely makes sense to me. And I see why you did it. And I see I'm coming around to it. I'm coming around to the idea that they add somebody there like that. So I'm up with Green Bay.
Yep.
And the way Green Bay has been, the way that Green Bay fans have been trolling so hard, I want to give them like, Stenson Bennett right here, but I won't.
Oh, I
And
love
and
it.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do my best impression of what I think Green Bay does. They more so than any other team in the NFL has, they rely on metrics and, physical standards that they want their guys to be at. And there's somebody on this board that just oozes to me Green Bay Packer, and I'm going to go ahead and take him.
Is it
And
Lucas
that's
Van
Lucas Van
Ness?
Ness. Lucas Van Ness from Iowa.
Yep.
Um, listen, he's there's no doubting, there's no denying his talent. He's his athletic ability. He's still very raw. He's like a bull in a china shop, but he is good. You can swing him in there. He can he can blitz from the out. He can play on the edge. Um, he can play 5 tech in an odd man front. You can bring him inside and he can rush from the inside and passing downs. I just think his versatility and his size and his um, skill set will work wonders with guys like Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary and Devontae Wyatt, who they drafted last year. I just think it's a real good fit. Lucas Van Ness spells Packers to me.
I think this is a very, very interesting pick. Because it would be so Green Bay to trade away their Hall of Fame quarterback, go and move on to this young guy, knowing that they still need to surround him with the weapons. I don't know if that wide receiver room is built enough. We don't know what they might be getting Corey Davis in that trade. Who knows? But at this point in time, like even with that saying, and a guy like Quentin Johnson on the board, or like for them to go and just say, let's just take Lucas Van Ness, is so Green Bay. It's the exact pick that I would have made. I am also a massive Lucas Van Ness fan. Like,
Yeah.
I consider him sometimes when all the 3 tackles are gone for the Jets at 13. Like, that's real because I really, really like his just raw, like, he's just so athletic. Him and Nolan Smith are guys that, and like Kalijah Cansey as well, are guys that I fell in love with, even though outside of Kalijah Cansey, who is the defensive interior that the Jets could definitely use, like, I just fell in love with those 2 guys, and it's just like I always have a hard time passing up on just guys that are just I know are gonna be good, and those are guys that I look at as just like I just know they're gonna be good,
Yeah.
but we just don't need them. But I love this pick for Green Bay. This is a team, now I'm on the clock with Washington, that I also struggle with very, very, very hard figuring out what they're gonna do, because realistically they would have hoped that Peter Skoronski would have fallen into here, and so that they could take him to play at a guard. They maybe hope that one of these corners, Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, falls here. They would love that.
I still think there's another corner here that
I look at Joey Porter Jr.
yeah.
legitimately as an option here.
I think Joey Porter Jr. is getting slept on. I think he's a lot better than he's going to be one of those guys who develops and becomes a much better pro than he was in college, and he was pretty damn good in college. He's he's a little grabby, a little handsy at times.
And it's not, and here's where I came down to, right, is I think that there is a big enough of a gap between the top 2 cornerbacks and Witherspoon and Gonzalez from Joey Porter. And I'm not saying that it's like huge. I think Joey Porter is a fantastic player. And if Pittsburgh was still here on the clock at 17, that's who I would have them taking, is Joey Porter Jr. I think that's a match made in heaven. But it's really looking like it's going to be either a Jacoby Brissett or Sam Howell-led Washington Commanders. And they have Terry McLaurin. They have Jahan Dotson. They have Curtis Samuel. They've got some wide receivers. But what is a young quarterback's best friend? A tight end. And I think this is where you're probably going to see Dalton Kincaid out of Utah being taken. He's definitely a first-round tight end.
Yeah,
and this is one of those teams that, is this their biggest need? No. But is this a bad pick? Also no. And so I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid here.
Great pick. I love it. And I think he's probably the first tight end off the board. I mean, I know him not being able to test and still working off of that injury that he had in college. That probably doesn't bode excellent for him, but the proof is in the pudding. I mean, he's fast. He can separate. He can play that big slot. He can play. Um, he can play in line. I mean, he's not a dog in blocking. But his talent and skill set and what he offers in the passing game is second to none in this class. I think so. I
I
love the
still
pick.
love Michael Mayer more.
Yeah.
I love that. I Dalton Kincaid's pass catching ability is better than Mayer's, but I think Mayer is an all around. Like when I think tight end and that job of a tight end, Michael Mayer is a dog in the run game and the blocking and all that stuff. I love tight ends that can do that very, very well. That's why I loved the CJ Uzama signing for the Jets. But in this generation of what a tight end is at the NFL level, Dalton Kincaid had to be the pick here. The
Yeah,
Eagles
no.
are at 17, trading
Eagles.
back.
Eagles back on the clock, and to me, this is a no-brainer. This is the pick I would have made at 10 if I was picking for the Eagles at 10. And realistically, I don't think this guy gets out of the top 10, maybe top 12. And if you look at the Eagles, they got some holes to fill, right? They brought some guys back for one more year. I think this is an ideal spot for Jalen Carter if he does slip to 10. Man, can you imagine him on that defensive line next to Jordan Davis and all those guys? But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to secure maybe the single best athlete in this class, and I'm going to take Nolan Smith from Georgia.
Wow.
He's just not going to get past the top 12. His athletic ability, and even if he starts this year for Philadelphia as a pass rush specialist, you got Brandon Graham, who's up there in age. I don't know how much you're going to expect out of Hassan Reddick, and they put in that that 5-man front last year where they let just Hassan Reddick roam free. I could see them doing them sticking with that formation and kind of handing those reins over to Nolan Smith. He's just so talented, and such a mismatch on the edge. And on top of it, what people don't realize about Nolan Smith is that he's really, really good as a run defender as well. So he can come in and he can rush the quarterback. Now he can step in and he can be the heir apparent to somebody like Hassan Reddick or Brandon Graham. And I think he just fits exactly what Philadelphia wants to do, and that's just create havoc and create pressure from all different ways. So Nolan Smith's the pick.
While not the pick that I would have made, or even the side of the ball that I would have touched, I love the pick. But I would have put a hat on a hat, and I would have turned a power into a superpower by going, if I was the Eagles there at 17, but that was your pick, and I'm not going to sit here and lie. I think that the Detroit Lions are a little upset with the Philadelphia Eagles for taking the guy that I would have taken at this pick, because Nolan Smith with Aiden Hutchinson would have been phenomenal. And I know that they got that Houston kid in the late rounds as a pass rush specialist, but I think you need more of a guy that's a 3-down guy there. With him off the board, Nolan Smith off the board, yes, you've still got guys like Myles Murphy, and I am a Myles Murphy guy, but I think that this is probably where they go and they pivot and they say, you know what? We're still going to stick to the defensive line. We're still going to get our guy, and we're just going to hope that the guy who's leaving Aaron Donald's school that has measurables like Aaron Donald can end up playing like Aaron Donald. And I think that they're going to take Kalijah Kancey here at 18.
Yeah, I makes sense to me. It absolutely does. I know a lot of people won't agree because of his size and so on and so forth, but what he can do and how he can affect the game, especially from the pass rush, from inside or outside. Listen, you're not going to flex him out as wide 9, but as a 4-eye 5 tech, even a 7 tech, he can get out there and he can get at it. So I love the pick there. I think it's a perfect fit. And I'm up with Tampa Bay.
I'm so interested in what you're going to do. Tampa Bay rattles my brain. I have no idea what the right move here for them is.
So here's what I'm thinking. All right, there's obviously no quarterback that we're going to take off the board. They're gonna run it out with Baker and Trask and let the best man win, I guess. Excuse me. They need some cornerback help. So Joey Porter's in the I think Joey Porter's in the conversation. Their offensive line's in shambles, and they could probably use another edge rusher as well over there. I know they spent a pick a couple years back on Joe Tryon, who hasn't really panned out to everything that they've wanted. They spent a second rounder on the kid from Houston, Logan Hall, last year. Um, they still got Shaq Barrett. So what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say that they're building for the future here. Um, they're not in it to win it this year. They're in, they got some cap issues. Let's start putting up some pieces that are going to be here long term, and I'm going to address the offensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go ahead and take what I think is the best pure pass blocking offensive tackle in this draft, and Anton Harrison. I don't even think it's a question. I think that he's a great fit in Tampa Bay. It allows you to keep Tristan Wirfs on the right side. You don't have to worry about that. Listen, is he the strongest guy? No, but that stuff is going to come. What he can do against the pass, against teams like New Orleans that's going to want to pass the ball. Frank Reich led offense in Carolina is going to want to pass the ball. So I think you got to keep up with those. I think you're going to have to keep up with those Joneses and just get your plug and play left tackle in here for the next couple of years. Anton Harrison's pick.
I was hoping that you would make my life easier as the Seattle Seahawks and take one of the guys that's on their board. And you didn't, and you made our lives really, really difficult here. We all know that Seattle traded up to take Anthony Richardson, the heir apparent to Geno Smith, after a year or two of sitting behind them. And ironically, they don't really need help on the offensive side of the ball, at all. They've got the running backs and Walker III, who was up for Offensive Rookie of the Year. They've still got Metcalf and Lockett. And yes, you could probably convince me that a third wide receiver is probably here. But they really need help on that defensive side of the ball. If they didn't take Anthony Richardson, I thought that's where Jalen Carter probably goes, is right there at 5. If there's any team that's built up enough goodwill to take a guy like that early, that would have been the pick that I made. But this is going to be a little bit of a galaxy brain kind of a pick here, because I was legitimately looking at Joey Porter Jr. and Brian Branch as the picks here for Seattle. They took Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant last year. They played Kobe Bryant primarily in the slot last year. Woolen was fantastic for them, but he still needs a running mate on the other side of the ball. I also maybe thought about Myles Murphy here, but I keep thinking back to when the Legion of Boom was the Legion of Boom. How were they winning? And it was through the secondary and primarily through those safeties. I don't think Jamal Adams is long for that team at this point in time. I think they're going to wait to the draft. And if Brian Branch is here at 20, I think he can immediately slot into where Jamal Adams can play. I think he's going to be able to play it at a much higher level than what Jamal Adams is currently being offered at. And I just don't see how you can have $36 million tied up in 2 safeties. Because
3. Don't forget, they just signed Julian Love.
Oh, yeah. 3 safeties. I don't see how you can do that. And Brian Branch's insane ability does give him the opportunity to kind of play as like an off-ball linebacker in the box. It's the pick that I'm going to make is Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. And the moment I made that click, I don't know. I think it works. It makes sense in my mind that defense, like this, I'm going to convince myself that this class is good at edge. You can get an edge later to fill in that need at edge. And so you know what? I'm going to skip on Myles Murphy for Brian Branch because I think he's the only other prospect in this class that I truly have a blue chip kind of level on him. And the only reason he's not being taken higher is because the value at safety just isn't there in the NFL anymore at all. That's the only reason he's available here. And so
that's a wow pick right there. I mean, I just listen, not a knock on the player. I can't wrap my head around where the fit is with them already invested so heavily in the safety room. I mean,
Jamal
Julian
Adams
Love
gets cut. He goes to Dallas. So that's what he wanted.
Julian Love can slide down, and he can man the nickel, or Brian Branch can man the nickel. But I mean, you're paying Julian Love $6 million a year to be your third safety. It's listen, if Jamal Adams, if this is a move that precludes Jamal Adams getting moved, I get it. It makes sense.
That's the whole point. This move only gets made because you're planning to move Jamal Adams. Because
Gotcha.
I think Brian Branch is such a good athlete. He's such a he's like almost a positionless player in that back seven, and how I look at him and his skill set. And so I go, you'll find a place to play him. Like he'll play somewhere. And
Gotcha.
in an ideal world, you play him at strong safety, and he's better than what you have at Jamal Adams there. And then you can test Kobe Bryant on the outside and bring Love down, or you can put Love back there with Quandre Diggs, bring Branch down into the slot and put Kobe outside. There's a lot of moving pieces that you can do there, but I think it's just one of those pieces that he just makes your defense better just by being there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And they just signed Bobby Wagner today.
Yep, brought him back,
Seattle,
$7 million.
Seattle, $7 million a year. They brought in Devin Bush.
Yep.
Yeah, they're making moves. Seattle's a real deal. This is another spot where the pick's made, but I think Seattle could also be prime real estate for somebody to trade up to, because Seattle, they slowly but surely don't have any real needs. It's kind of scary. So, but I'm on the clock here with the Chargers. And the first thing I thought about the Chargers was I thought about Keenan Allen's atrocity of a contract and the fact that he's getting older. So to me, like a slot receiver makes sense here, but it's not the way I'm going to go.
Really? That's the pick I would have made.
Yeah, I'm going to go a different way. I'm kind of locked into this. To me, it's such a good fit, especially with all the grumblings going on right now. And I'm going to go ahead and take Bijan Robinson.
Ooh, I love it.
Out of Texas.
Oh,
Listen,
love it.
We know what's happening with the running back over there, in San Diego. He wants or Los Angeles. I'm sorry. He wants a new contract. And, listen, here's the reality. Austin Eckler's 30 years old, right? He's excellent. I'm not denying that. But Bijan Robinson's a top 5 player in my class. I know people don't like to take running backs this early, but I think this guy is a difference maker. He gives you that support and can slide in. He can work alongside of Eckler. He can be Eckler's replacement if or when they move on from him. And then you just got a really, really good offense and hope that you can address the wide receiver, which I know you can later on in the draft in the second, third round, and still be able to get a good slot receiver. But you're not going to get anybody nearly of the capability of Bijan Robinson here. So I'm taking him off the board, man.
Dom, I love this pick. If it was me and if you didn't call as the Steelers to come up to 10, that's where he was going. He was going to Philadelphia at 10. Yeah. That was when I said, and when you pick for Philly at 17 and you took Nolan Smith, that's who I wanted the Eagles to take. It's a hat on a hat. They are a run-first team who just lost their primary running back in Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
And Bijan Robinson is a very clear upgrade to Miles Sanders. Like, heads and shoulders better.
Yeah.
And they're coming off of a Super Bowl run. They brought back a lot of those guys. Hat on a hat. NFC's weak. Go run it back. And do it by bringing in the most dynamic running back. The Baltimore Ravens are absolutely furious. Furious, because this is the pick that they would have made. Bijan is the pick. They're furious. Wow. Furious. J.K. Dobbins has not been able to stay healthy at all. And while he was dealing with that same injury that Breece Hall has and that Saquon had, and they were both rushed back early, you can't trust him to play a full amount of games. Gus Edwards is still there, but this is my assumption is that they kiss and make up, the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
He'll be the quarterback there. And no matter what, they still run the ball a ton there. And they have a problem with their running back staying healthy, and that's who they would have taken. And this kind of forces their hand. They kind of are being forced into a position where they have to pivot. And so instead of being able to get the running back that I think that they would have wanted, I think that they're going to pivot and they're just going to go get the wide receiver that maybe they would have wanted. And of the guys that are available, I think the only guy that really fits the bill of having the possibility of being an X is Quentin Johnston. I would love to give them a Jordan Addison here to be quick and shifty in the middle of the field. I just don't trust Lamar's accuracy to be able to hit a guy like that in the middle of the field in those tight windows. Let's get a big-bodied Quentin Johnston, a contested catch guy. Hope that he can learn to catch with his hands at the next level and move on there. And that's the pick. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU. You're on the board, 23 with Minnesota. Or if you want to talk about the Quentin Johnston pick, you can do that too, but the floor is yours.
Now, Quentin Johnston makes sense there. Like I don't want to harp on it. He's not my favorite receiver in this class.
Me neither.
But I get it. It makes sense. He's completely opposite of everything that they have already. He'd be a nice complement to Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay if Bateman can stay healthy.
And they brought in
Aguilar. They brought in Nelson Aguilar as well, who can soak up some of those slot reps as well. So I think you have a nice little basis there with those 4 receivers and Mark Andrews to open it up for Lamar Jackson. I personally probably would have looked along the offensive line for Baltimore because I think that they're sneakily weak in the offensive line. But
really?
I digress. Well, I mean, they got Morgan Moses on the right side, right? Who's their left tackle? Ronnie Staley, who can't stay healthy.
Yeah, that's you make a good point. I didn't think about it that way.
The depth behind those guys, I'm not too sure, but it's no one of substance to me. I think it smells tackle. But you know what? Baltimore, for the first time in a while, has a lot of holes. They can go a bunch of different ways, man. They can go.
I looked at Joey Porter here for them too, because
Yeah.
they just lost what's his name to play. So like maybe you get a Joey Porter to play next to Humphrey. I looked at that too, but like if Lamar's gonna play on the tag, which I think is what's gonna end up happening.
Yeah.
And if he's gonna play on the tag, you're gonna want to get him like just the best available option when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, so I'm up on the clock with Minnesota, and Brian Flores now running that defense. Gone is, who was the defense coordinator there? Donatelli, was that? Not Donatelli.
No idea.
Yeah, it was Ed Donatelli, I think, was the defense coordinator there last year, and they, it's a different scheme. They played a lot of off coverage, a lot of zone coverage, a lot of quarters, a lot of 3 deep last year, and that's just not Flores' game. Flores wants to man up and play and create pressure from all different angles. So to me, cornerback is the pick here, and I'm glad to say I'm surprised that he's still on the board, but I'm going to go ahead and soak up Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. He fits the scheme, fits the mold, can offers a lot in man coverage. One of the better guys in this class. He's gonna have to tone down. He's gonna have to learn how to play his physical style without being as grabby. But you know what? They said the same thing about Sauce Gardner. So, and I'm not comparing Porter to Sauce Gardner, but they said those were a lot of the problems coming out of Cincinnati was that Sauce was too physical and it was going to get called all the time for holding penalties. And, every fan base out there thinks that, he's some, DPI merchant, but he's not really. I think, I think Joey Porter just makes too much sense here, and Minnesota's elated.
Yep. I think so is Jacksonville. I think there was a legitimate possibility that the guy that they're looking at gets taken away here. I think that if Joey Porter was on the board here, they might have taken Joey Porter here. But I think that with an offensive coach and offensive coaching staff, Trevor Lawrence seeming like he's the guy there, right? He had such a good year too, and you just try to build up that momentum. You're adding a new wide receiver in Calvin Ridley, who's like a legitimate option out there, and you still got Kirk and Jones. Etienne had a good year. You got to bulk up that offensive line. I don't necessarily think you necessarily need a tackle, but I think they desperately need a center. And because Luke Fortner just isn't it. And I'm going to have them taking the best center in the class in John Michael Schmitz here at 24. Is this a little bit of a reach? Yeah, probably. But the value of adding to the offensive line at a position that I think is so critical at center, but then also having the 5th-year option on it, you didn't have to move up or down or risk a guy not being there in the second. Screw it. You know that this is going to be the pick. If the Giants were here, they were going to take John Michael Schmitz. Don't let it happen. Go get your guy, John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think this is the area that he goes. I really do. And he's worth it.
I agree.
He's absolutely worth it. So John Michael Schmitz is a great pick for Jacksonville. Sorry, Jets fans. Yep. I couldn't make it happen. I couldn't find a trade down partner. So I'm up with the Giants, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up the phone. And the Giants got a call. And it seems that Kansas City wants to come up from 31.
Ooh.
Kansas City wants to come up from 31. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can make this work here on my side. Because there's somebody that's itching. Let's see if I can make this work. Let's see the trade value chart here. So that's 600 to 720. That's 120 points. Yeah, we can get away with. I'm going to go ahead and offer the first round pick swap. So the Giants can move down to 31. And to do so, they're going to pick up picks number 95. And they're going to pick up pick number 166 in doing it. So that's 31, 95, and 166 to make that happen.
Kansas City is now on the board after a huge trade out of nowhere.
Hang on, I got to make this work on my end here.
They coming up for the Boston College kid?
No, they're not.
Ooh.
They're not.
That's who I thought it was. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say it's not. Zay Flowers is so good. I thought that was the move.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make that deal. And Kansas City, they like to go get their guys. You know, they made a trade up last year for the cornerback. They're not afraid to do it. And, you know, they're a championship team. So they got to replace some guys. You know, I know that they signed Charles Omenihu from San Francisco.
Yep.
But they're just going to let the slide. They're going to let the slide stop, and they're going to jump up and take Miles Murphy, the edge from Clemson. He's a perfect fit. He brings a different skill set than first rounder last year, George Karlaftis, and you know you got to replace Frank Clark. It makes too much sense, and it puts another defensive weapon on there for them to go get. So we're gonna go ahead and make that selection, and Miles Murphy's gonna be the pick.
Love it. I love it. Okay, here is a very interesting thing because I am fighting with my inner Jerry Jones and my inner smart GM. And I don't know. I'm going to talk this out loud and then come up to the pick, right? My inner Jerry Jones wants to take Zay Flowers. I know that they just traded for Brandon Cooks, and I know that they have CeeDee Lamb. But my inner Jerry Jones just is saying, go get the wide receiver. Forget everything else. Gotta sell tickets. Money. And that would be the money pick, right? Just hat on a hat. That's a pick. And it makes sense. In the NFC, in their division, in the NFC East, you gotta keep up with the scoring. Just the sheer amount of scoring that Philadelphia is going to do. And the way that you do that is getting Dak Prescott, a well-known limited quarterback, more weapons. But Micah Parsons and Lawrence, and is it Dexter? Is that his first name, right? DeMarcus. I'm sorry. DeMarcus Lawrence need a running mate. And is this where you look at a guy like a Brian Bressie to put up in the middle there.
Yeah.
He's got some concerns and question marks about his want and drive and all of those things, but it's a serious position. Yeah, I'm going to go Brian Bressie. I wanted to do the sexy pick and take Zay Flowers here. I really, really did. But I'm going to do the smart move. Back-to-back Clemson picks. Brian Bressie, you're going to Dallas. The Buffalo Bills are on the board, and now I don't have to help a team in our division. You do.
Yes,
Make the Buffalo
I
Bills
do.
better.
Buffalo. Listen, there's a couple different ways they can go here. I wouldn't rule out. I know some people might think it's crazy, but I wouldn't rule out wide receiver here.
That's the pick I would make.
I wouldn't rule out wide receiver at all. But I don't think I'm going to go wide receiver.
Oh, come on. You know that's the pick they're going to do.
No, I think. Man, I'm between two guys here. I'm not a fan of Spencer Brown. I know they spent third-round capital on him, and they've tried to really make him work last year. So I'm tempted to go tackle again and take DeJuan Jones, but I'm not. I'm going to look the opposite way, and I'm going to move to the inside. And yeah.
Is this the Florida boy?
This is the Florida boy. I'm going to take Osiris Torrance off the board.
I love
he could slide. He could slide in at left guard.
Remember they did bring in McGovern.
They did bring in McGovern.
Yeah.
McGovern does play left guard. Okay, so you slide him in at right guard in front of Ryan Bates. Listen, it's really a coin flip to me. DeJuan Jones here or Osiris Torrance, and I just think I like what Osiris Torrance does with that offense. You don't have to worry about the inside. You bring in Connor McGovern. You got Mitch Morse. Even if Mitch Morse and the concussions don't pan out, you can move Connor McGovern over. I think you just build some more interior depth here. Yeah, Osiris Torrance is a pick.
I would have taken Zay Flowers here. I think you got to get – Gabe Davis showed his inconsistencies last year. And as I love Gabe Davis, just straight up just because he's a UCF Knight. And, like, if you haven't – I go to UCF right now. And, like, I would love to see those guys do well. But didn't work out that way. Now, the Bengals are on the board. And this is one of those places where I legitimately have almost no idea what they're going to do. Like, at all. I tend to go, like, is this the Michael Mayer pick? Like, because they could use a tight end and just get better there. Is this the DeJuan Jones pick and just go and get the tackle? They brought in, Orlando Brown Jr. The other guy that they have is requesting a trade. Lyle Collins is dealing with the ACL. So is the tackle a need there? We know the whole situation is with Higgins. Is he still going to be there? Do you maybe overdraft the safety Antonio Johnson because you did lose Jesse Bates and Von Bell? And while you do have Daxton Hill, like, how much do you really trust, Nick Scott, who is slated to be their free safety starter right now? I have no idea where they're going to go here.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, I'm racking my brain around it.
I think this was the perfect spot for Brian Branch. I think this would have been the perfect spot for Brian Branch. He could play the nickel.
Yep.
And I think they have Hilton there, if I'm not mistaken. But if not, he can alternate, and you have two Swiss Army knives and him and Dax Hill. Imagine that as your safety duo for the next 10 years. But I digress because that can't happen. I know what I would do.
I think I'm going to take Michael Mayer here.
Yeah, without a doubt, I'd go tight end. Now the question is, would they lean Michael Mayer or would they go for the big guy in Darnell Washington?
I think you got to go. Darnell Washington reeks of George Fant for me in the sense of, like, some team's going to take him and turn him into a tackle.
It could be, but
Right.
listen, he's athletic as could be, man.
Yeah, but
He,
like what I'm saying like is like to me that doesn't make a ton of sense. Like if like I'm not saying that that's what happens. I have Michael Mayer as tight end 1 in my on
Mhm.
my board. I love Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
And it goes Mayer, Kincaid, Washington. And so like Mayer provides that George Kittle kind of body in that offense. You know, he can block, he's an outlet in the pass game, and now you've just got like 5 monsters that you can throw the ball to. And I feel like that's the only piece that they've been missing on that offense is tight end. You know, they couldn't figure out a way to get CJ Uzama going. They had Hayden Hurst last year. They couldn't really figure out a way to get him going. You can get Michael Mayer going. And yeah, so that's the pick. 29. You've got the New Orleans Saints.
The New Orleans Saints.
Good luck. This one, I have no idea.
Yeah, I listen. I'm back and forth with a couple guys. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna rule out upgrading them at cornerback opposite Marshawn Lattimore. I think they're pretty good at the safety. No, I don't think they're the safety eligible guy here.
They got Honey
know they
Badger
just-
and Marcus May.
Yeah, I know they re-signed Michael Thomas, so they're bringing him back, but he can't stay healthy.
Nope.
So wide receiver is an area that you could go, but I'm going to go off the beaten path here. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to take somebody who I think is going to sneak into this first round. Probably not somebody that you hear a whole heck of a lot, but somebody who has a skill set for what they lack off of the edge, and that's absolute disruption from the outside. He can move all over the place. He can drop back in coverage when you need him to. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it. I'm just honing down. You still got Cam Jordan on one side. They lost the other kid. What was the kid that signed with Minnesota? Good Lord, help me.
Oh, I
Who
do.
was the? Oh, come on. Let me think. Let me look up Minnesota. Real
According to their depth chart, Granderson is the other side of Cam Jordan.
No, they just lost the defensive end to Minnesota. Marcus Davenport, yeah. Outside linebacker rush. So I'm going to replace Marcus Davenport, and I'm going to take Will McDonald from Iowa State. Needs to bulk up a little bit, but can affect the game can really affect the game as a pass rusher. He's dangerous. He's lethal. He's got the best spin game in all college football. And he just knows how to go after get the quarterback. And I think this is the area where he's going to go. I was thinking about Tommy Adebawore from Northwestern here too, but I just think McDonald can kind of slide in and really help and offer something big on that edge in the pass rush. So Will McDonald's a pick. Lock it in.
Love it. Love it. Already made it. And I don't even think I need to really talk about the Eagles pick that much.
Okay.
I'm taking Zay Flowers. That's it. I know that you've got AJ Brown, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL in my eyes. I know you've got Devontae Smith, a guy that I'm not very high on, again, size concern, but he every year that he stays out there and he's playing, he proves me wrong. But it's the Cincinnati Bengals model. If you can have 3 legitimate wide receivers and 3 legitimate targets, go do it. They don't really have very many holes that they need to fill, and when you're looking at straight up just value, outside of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, they don't have a single wide receiver that's worth anything. Zay Flowers is arguably one of the better wide receivers in this class, and to get him at the end here at 30, go help your newly found franchise quarterback stay at the top of his game. Zay Flowers is the pick at 30.
Zay Flowers. I like it. And I'm up with the Giants.
With the last pick in the draft.
The last pick in the draft, man. Man, this is interesting. I was thinking wide receiver the whole way. Not gonna lie. I know they just made a bunch of free agent acquisitions. They brought in Paris Campbell.
Yep.
And they brought in Jamison Crowder.
Yep.
They re-signed Sterling Sharp. They re-signed Darius Slayton. So that gives you Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Wandell Robinson, Sterling Sharp, Darius Slayton, Jamison Crowder, all B-level guys. Nothing, no one there that really scares me. So wide receiver really could be in this ballpark. But I'm also looking at the defensive backs, and they need to replace the free safety spot, right? Unless you're going to hand it over to Jason Pinnock. I don't even know who plays on the opposite side. Is it Cordell Flott? Darnay Holmes in the slot. Oh man, they signed Amani Oruware, I believe. Oh man, this is a tough spot. This is a tough pick here. I'm looking at the board. Yeah, I'm gonna go defensive back. And I'm going to take one of the high risers. He probably is not going to see the board here at 31. I'm going to take Deonte Banks out of Maryland. 6'2", well over 200 pounds. Good athlete, man coverage, everything that they want to do on defense. Lock him up and let him go. And yeah, he can. He's probably going to push for starting reps right off the bat. Deonte Banks is the pick.
I would have still gone the wide receiver. I would have gone Jordan Addison there at that pick.
And it very well could be. Like I said, I don't think any of those free agent moves that they made, Crowder, Paris Campbell, or the re-signing of Slayton or anything, precludes them from taking wide receiver. I just think that the talent and the value of Deonte Banks there is too rich to pass up, especially for a defensive backfield where you're starting, Adoree Jackson, Cordell Flott, and Darnay Holmes.
I would have also looked at maybe one of the interior offensive lineman guys just to have the 5th-year option. Like you're already picking at 31. You already recouped some assets. I would have looked there too. That offensive line desperately needs some help as well. Especially on the interior. You sit here and you hope that Evan Neal bounces back from what was just ultimately a really bad rookie campaign out of Evan Neal.
Yeah. I don't rule out linebacker at that spot either. I know that the linebackers are, it depends who you like, whether it's, Trenton Simpson is your cup of tea. But Drew Sanders, who's big off the blitz, and the Giants love to blitz the linebackers. I mean, he's a fit right now. I mean, they have Jared Davis as their starting Mike.
I'm going to say this, and I need you to – this isn't just because I like the kid, okay? Because I haven't talked about him in a long time. But yeah. I was – in my free time, I like to listen to other teams and other fan bases and other content creators. And I saw someone legitimately pitching to the Buffalo Bills fan base. And I only think about this because you mentioned linebacker. Mm-hmm. That if Bijan Robinson – they want Bijan Robinson at 20 –
Buffalo?
Yeah, the Buffalo fans.
Well,
from what
who doesn't want Bijan Robinson?
No, but from what I can see, like that's what they want at 27. Is from what I keep hearing. There was a guy that was legitimately saying that if Bijan Robinson's not the pick at 27 because he's gone before then, that the losing of Tremaine Edmonds is such a big deal that they should take Jack Campbell in the first. And I was blown away. I was like, what?
Yeah,
you have Matt Milano. Like, just go get a guy in the second. And I'm not sitting here to say that, but I'm trying to back up your point of like that 31 pick, that Kansas City pick at 31, right, is such a good pick to just come in and get a guy that you would have taken in the second anyway.
Yeah.
To just have the 5th-year option on, just so they can have him for 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's where it's just like those picks are crapshoots. That's why I went wide receiver at 30. Is the gap between Zay Flowers and the guy that they would have gotten at the back end of the second round that big? Probably not. But having the 5th-year option on Zay Flowers, I think, is worth it.
Yeah.
And you can...
listen, I like the pick of Zay Flowers. I mean, he's worthy of the pick. You know what I mean? He can play outside. He can play inside. He separates as good as anybody in this class. You know, he's bulked up a little bit. You know, he's still only about 185 pounds, but you know, he's bigger than Devonta Smith. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Devonta
and
Smith is what, like 95 pounds soaking wet, carrying
and
all of his teammates' pads.
yeah, listen, it's somebody like Zay Flowers in that offense is just gonna, you know, open up more room for Jalen Hurts to run. It's gonna open up um, more space and take the, you know, the double teams or the high lows off of AJ Brown. So it makes sense. And like I said, the Giants pick, I just think that Banks is too much value. He could be a top 15 pick without question. I wouldn't be surprised if he is. Um, but Giants can go many different ways. You know, Jordan Addison, I could see it happening. I could see a guy like I said, Drew Sanders. I think is a good fit. I could see the interior offensive line. You know, that could be the spot where Joe Tippmann comes off the board.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so bunch of good things happen there. So.
Alrighty, guys, you can see our full first round mock draft up on the board, up on the screen right now. Let us know what you think of the picks. What picks did you like? What picks did you not like? Dom is right now a part of the Green Bean Jets fan channel doing his Project Prospect podcast over there. Dom, tell us what to expect out of Project Prospect and what's coming up soon.
So, I actually just filmed and edited and put out. It'll be put out over the next couple of days. The next episode with really, really good guy, John Vogel. He's a scout that I met down in Mobile. He's a writer for NFL Draft Buzz, and he's their lead scout, and he's so knowledgeable. And he and I talked about the interior defensive line a whole heck of a lot. That was kind of our focus. Guys that he thinks, and guys that I like that would fit the Jets, because it's a need. You know, say what you want. You know, Calais Campbell is coming to visit, but no contract yet. So it's sneakily, not even so much sneaky anymore, but it's becoming a bigger need. So me and John chopped it up for, you know, a good 30, 40 minutes. It was really, really knowledgeable, really good episode. I also have another short little Project Prospect video coming out where I go in depth on Mozzie Smith, one of those nose tackles that I really like in this draft. And you know, we host the 10 o'clock mock on Green Bean's YouTube channel every Monday at 10. Always a lot of fun. Always a lot of interaction with the chat. And that's about it, man.
Awesome. Guys, if you don't subscribe to Green Bean, first of all, what are you doing wrong? You got to fix your life. But if you don't follow Green Bean, literally just go subscribe just for the Dom C content. It is phenomenal. I love it. Draft time is one of my favorite times of the year, not just because I love talking draft and going over all the ideas and the possibility, but this is where Dom C signs, and we get more and more and more of Dom C during the draft time. Dom, thank you so much for stopping by. Guys, if you like the content, hitting the thumbs up button is a really easy way to show it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button on your way out. Remember, we go live every Friday at 9:30, so stick around for that and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever new videos come out. And last but not least, go Jets.